The wind dragged across the barren valley like a wounded animal, howling through the jagged stones and torn earth. Night settled over the land slowly, crawling in with cold fingers that gripped everything it touched. In this bleak twilight, a lone figure walked, shoulders low, steps heavy, but eyes burning with a fire that refused to die. His name was Kael. He had once belonged to a kingdom that praised courage, a kingdom that claimed to honor loyalty. But loyalty meant nothing when fear ruled men's hearts. When the northern marauders attacked, the nobles panicked, and Kael, one of their strongest commanders, was framed for treason to hide their own cowardice. Without trial, without truth, they dragged him to the cliff's edge and cast him into the abyss below, believing the rocks would silence him forever. But they were wrong. Kael survived. Broken bones, shattered pride, blood soaking into the cold ground. He endured it all. He lay in the darkness for hours, drifting between life and death, until a single thought pulled him back from the void. I will not die by their hands. I will rise, whether heaven wants me or not. With his fingers numb and trembling, he crawled through the black ravine, climbing out through sheer refusal to surrender. The moon saw him emerge from the chasm, half dead, half reborn, covered in dust and blood like something dragged out of the underworld. For days, he wandered the wilderness. Hunger tore at him, pain chewed at his bones, but he kept moving, step after step, refusing to let his body collapse. Each breath felt like swallowing fire. Each night, he slept with one eye open, hearing whispers of wolves stalking the shadows. Yet he survived. By the seventh night, he reached the ruins of an ancient fortress, the citadel of Thornfall. Long abandoned, feared by the villagers, home to legends of spirits that devoured the living. Most men never dared approach it, but Kael walked through the shattered gates as if entering his own grave. Inside, the air was thick, almost alive. The moonlight slid through cracks in the stone, revealing long hallways lined with broken armor and rusted chains hanging like forgotten screams. Kael felt the weight of centuries pressing against him, but he welcomed it. Pain was no stranger. Fear had no place left in him. The fortress seemed to watch him. Its torches, long dead, flickered softly as he passed. Dust rose in gentle swirls, as if acknowledging his presence. Kael should have felt threatened, but instead he felt something familiar. Like the building itself understood what it meant to be abandoned, shattered, and left for dead. After hours of exploring, he found a massive chamber at the heart of the citadel. A cold blue flame floated above an ancient stone altar. Beneath the flame, resting untouched despite the centuries, was a blade, long black as night. Markings etched along the edge glowing faintly like dying embers. Kael approached, drawn in as if by fate. The moment his fingers touched the hilt, the chamber shuddered. The flame rose high, casting twisted shadows across the walls. A surge of raw power slammed into him, flooding his veins like a storm trying to rip him apart. He staggered but did not let go. The fortress roared with a sound that was not wind, not stone, but something older, something that had waited for a warrior to claim it. Images burst through Kael's mind. Battles fought in forgotten centuries, kings rising and falling, blood painting the earth like ink. He saw an army kneel before the blade. He saw darkness swallowing kingdoms whole. He saw a man, much like himself, standing tall against the world with eyes that refused to break. When the visions faded, Kael sank to one knee, struggling to breathe. The power was overwhelming, heavy, cold, but it settled into him like a fire buried deep beneath ice. His pain dulled, his limbs steadied, his heartbeat grew stronger, pounding with purpose. He stood slowly, raising the blade. Its dark surface reflected not the broken man he had been, but the hardened warrior he was becoming. "This world took everything from me," he whispered into the silent hall. "Now I will take back far more." For the first time since his fall, he felt the weight of his anger transform. Not into despair, but into something sharper. Something he could use. Something that would guide him. He strapped the blade across his back and left the chamber. Outside, the night sky stretched endlessly, cold stars scattered like shattered pieces of destiny. The wind howled, yet Kael heard something beneath it, something faint but undeniable. Drums in the distance. The kingdom that discarded him was preparing for war. Not against marauders, not against invaders, but against their own people, silencing anyone who dared speak of corruption. The nobles who betrayed him were using fear as a throne, and innocent lives were about to burn for their lies. Kael clenched his fists. He did not want revenge. Revenge was small, petty, weak. What he wanted was justice, the kind that reshaped worlds. The kind that made tyrants tremble in their own halls. The kind that rose from the ruins stronger than anything that tried to destroy it. He looked back at the fortress, feeling its ancient strength hum beneath the stones. "I will return," he said, "to the kingdom, to the throne, to the men who buried me. And when I arrive, I will not come alone." As if in response, the faint blue flame lit the dark sky behind him. Kael walked into the night, no longer a fallen commander, but something far more dangerous. A man reborn through darkness, driven not by hatred but by purpose. And purpose, once awakened, does not sleep. Dawn crawled over the horizon like a wounded beast, casting pale light across the valley. Kael stood atop a rocky cliff, the wind tearing at his cloak, the ancient blade resting against his back like a shadow fused to his spine. Below him, smoke rose from villages, evidence of the nobles' cruelty spreading across the land. What they couldn't control, they crushed. What they couldn't silence, they burned. He watched quietly, not with anger but with resolve. The kingdom had fallen long before he was betrayed. Its rot was deep, its rulers hollow. They had built their power on fear, and fear was fragile, easily broken by someone who no longer felt it. Kael stepped off the cliff, landing hard on the path below. His body had grown stronger since claiming the blade. Pain still lived inside him, but it no longer hindered him. Instead, it guided him, sharpening his senses, hardening his resolve. By midday, he reached a forest village half destroyed by soldiers loyal to the nobles. Homes burned to cold ash, the smell of fear hanging thick in the air. He walked among the ruins, and the few surviving villagers stared at him. Some with suspicion, others with hollow eyes that had lost hope long ago. A boy approached cautiously, no older than 10. His clothes were torn, soot covering his tear-streaked face. "Are you one of them?" the boy whispered, voice trembling. Kael knelt to his level. "No, I've come to stop them." The boy studied him, eyes drifting to the dark blade on his back. "You look like a shadow." Kael allowed a faint, tired smile. "Sometimes shadows fight for the light." The boy hesitated, then pointed toward the far road. "They took our people. Anyone strong enough to resist, they dragged them to the iron pits." Kael stood. Without another word, he walked toward the road. The villagers watched him go, hope flickering faintly in their expressions, something they had not felt in a long time. The iron pits lay miles ahead, buried deep in the mountains. By nightfall, Kael reached them. The sound of clanging metal echoed across the cliffs, chains rattling against stone as prisoners were forced to mine until their bodies broke. Torches lined the entrance. Guards patrolled lazily, never expecting a threat. After all, who would dare challenge the nobles? Kael would. He stepped into the open. The nearest guard noticed him and barked. "You, state your." Kael moved with inhuman speed, silencing him in a single strike. The others rushed him, blades drawn, shouting in panic. But their fear was louder than their courage. Kael's blade carved through them like a storm tearing through dry branches. Shadows exploded with every strike, dark energy cracking the ground beneath his feet. Within moments, silence returned. Only the fires crackled. Kael walked into the pits. Prisoners, chained and bruised, stared at him with disbelief. A few stumbled back, unsure whether he was savior or executioner. A man stepped forward, older, scarred, his eyes sharp despite exhaustion. "Who are you?" "A man who was left to die," Kael answered. "Like all of you." The man studied him carefully. "And why come back?" "Because those who fall and rise again are not meant to bow." A murmur rippled through the prisoners. Kael raised his blade. It pulsed with dark light, and the chains around the walls shattered like thin glass. Shackles snapped open, metal groaning as it broke apart. The prisoners gasped, rubbing their bruised wrists. "You're free," Kael said. "But freedom means nothing if fear owns your heart. Walk with me, and we take back what was stolen. Walk away, and live your life quietly. The choice is yours." Silence stretched for a long moment. Then the older man stepped forward. "I will follow." Another joined him. Then another. In moments, dozens stood behind Kael, not as subjects but as allies, broken people reforged by suffering, just like him. Their journey back toward the kingdom was slow but steady. More survivors joined them along the way. People who had lost everything, people who refused to kneel any longer. What began as a handful grew into hundreds, each carrying anger, pain, and a desire for change. Kael never called them soldiers. They were something far stronger. Men and women who had already faced the worst and survived. By the 10th night, they reached the outskirts of the capital. Towering walls surrounded the city, guards stationed like statues carved from arrogance. Inside those walls lived the nobles who believed themselves untouchable, the ones who built their throne on betrayal. Kael stepped forward, his army behind him. The moonlight struck his blade, casting a dark glow across the field. A guard shouted from the wall. "Identify yourself." Kael raised his voice, steady and unshakable. "The man you threw into the abyss." The guards froze. Some recognized the voice. Others felt an instinctive fear grip them. Kael took another step. The ground trembled beneath him. "I come not for revenge," he declared. "I come to end the reign of cowards who rule through fear. I come to rebuild what you destroyed." The gates remained still. His army waited silently. Kael lifted the blade. A deep, thunderous shockwave burst from it, ripping across the field like the roar of a sleeping god awakening from his grave. The gates shattered. Stone broke apart violently, collapsing inward. Kael walked through the ruins, his army following. Inside, the nobles scrambled in panic. Some hid, some tried to flee, but there was no escape. Kael's presence filled the city like an oncoming storm, inevitable, unstoppable. He moved through the streets, confronting the noble council in their grand hall. Their leader, trembling but defiant, pointed at him with shaking fingers. "You cannot rule this kingdom. You are nothing but a fallen commander." Kael's eyes burned with a calm, cold fire. "Then let this be known," he said. "The fallen do not stay fallen, and those born through pain cannot be broken." The hall shook as he stepped forward, the shadows rising behind him like a crown forged in darkness. That night, the kingdom changed forever. Not through mercy, not through fear, but through the rise of a man who embraced his pain and turned it into power. Through the strength of people who had suffered enough. Through a leader forged not in comfort, but in the darkest depths. Kael did not claim a throne. He built a new one. A throne not of gold, but of purpose. And the world would remember. When darkness tries to destroy a man, it may instead create something far more powerful. ChatGPT can make mistakes. Check important info.